Hi guys, long time no see. It's been a while since I filmed something, so I thought I would film another floral arrangement for you and give you something fresh to look at. And at the end of the video, I'll have a couple of questions for you to do for your assignment this week. So I know that because of the school closure and with everything going on, prom has been canceled and graduation's kind of in a mess right now. But normally we would be doing corsage and boutonnieres right about this time for those special occasions. And I think it's still something worthwhile learning because for the rest of your life, you will have special occasions, anniversaries, just some formal event that if you could do this yourself, number one, it's gonna save you a lot of money, but number two, it's something fun to learn. And I don't always make them for me, but I make them a lot for gifts. Like when my grandparents had their 50th wedding anniversary, we made a big party for them. And it's just something special because you made it. So there's lots of different ways to make corsage and boutonnieres, lots of different ways using different kinds of equipment. I'm gonna teach you a basic way that I learned a long time ago that I always teach in beginning. And just know that depending on the flower and plant choices that you use, you may wanna change it up technique-wise because we are wearing these. So the weight of the piece would totally determine what kinds of materials you need to use. So this is kind of a basic catch-all. Today I'm going to be using some spray roses, baby's breath, and leatherleaf fern, just very basic. If you were going to use a bigger flower and a heftier flower than this, number one, I would just caution you about that because especially for the guy with the boutonniere, it's going to be pinned on the body and it just needs to look proportionate to the male that it's going on. Something as big as a sunflower should never be used, but there are orchids that are kind of broader and flat that people like. And then for the female version today, I'm teaching you the wristlet, the bracelet kind, just because that's what's popular for teenagers and young adults, especially for prom season. But there is a pin on, a shoulder version of a corsage, kind of more old school. If you're in a formal wedding, a church wedding, you might see like the mom and the grandmas wear those, or like the pastor or the officiant. So just being aware of that. Because our female corsage is wristlet and it's going on the arm and we've got all this support structure, I can put a lot more on this than I would on a pin on. So just be thinking about that. So our supplies today, I told you about the plants. You need a wristlet for the girl and a pin for the boy. I'm gonna have some ribbon to make a bow because you do need bows. And then wire. I just buy paddle wire from the craft store and this roll will last me forever. So you need some wire cutters to be cutting that. And then you need floral tape. This is the game changer because we're not sticking these in a vase and we need them to be held together in an arrangement and not move. You got to do something to hold them together. So floral tape. This stuff is really cheap. You can find it at all the craft stores. Even the dollar store sometimes has this. So, and it's a lot for what you get. So you're not going to use this whole roll at all. So you need floral tape. In addition, regular scissors to cut the ribbon, floral shears to cut our plants, and then lastly, you'll need a pen or a pencil, and I'll show you that step at the very end, okay? All right, with that, I think we'll get started. Okay, our first step today is gonna be to wire and tape all of our roses, our main flower. And in order to do a wristlet and a boutonniere set today, I'm gonna be doing 4 blooms. That will be 3 in a triangular formation for the wristlet, and then a single bloom for the boutonniere for the guy. And the guy, I always like to go more petite because even a small one will look good on a bigger guy, but a big one will never look good on a smaller guy. So just being aware of body frame and all that, if you know that, if you could hold it up to them, it's fine. But for the female with the 3, I don't want 3 huge ones that are all open that look the same. I want some variants. So I want to look for some closed up and some more bloomed out. And with that, I want to kind of tell you that don't be afraid to use ones that are as closed up as this, because let's say your event is later tonight. So let's say 6 or 7 hours from now, or even the next day, these are going to continue to open up. So that versus something that is already pretty open like this is going to kind of start to fall apart and start to wilt. So it's riskier to use this than it is to use this. Now, if this is your only option, have no fear. There are ways to help prevent that from happening. Gotta add moisture, gotta keep it in a cool, dark place. Just treat it well and it will be fine. But I definitely don't want to use 3 that are all this size for the girl. It's going to cover way too much space, and it's just going to look like almost kind of fake. It's just going to be so perfect and big and so repetitive that I don't want that. I want to have some variance in it. So I'm going to cut 4 blooms that I think would be good to use, and then I'll show you wiring and taping. So I'm going to go 1, 2, that's a good one, 3, and 4. All right, I picked out my 4 blooms. We are wiring and taping them, and here's why. The natural stem of the plant, while it is flexible to some degree, it doesn't bend all the way, it snaps. And somebody's gonna be wearing this on their body, moving and grooving, and then on the wrist, definitely coming into contact with lots of stuff. So we want to get rid of this, because if we do all this work and it just snaps and breaks and falls apart and falls on the ground within the first 5 minutes of the event, like, why did we do all that? So we're gonna cut this at the calyx. I want you to look at this real quick. At the base of the flower, you have this swollen part, and then you see the skinnier stem. So this part, the swollen part, is calyx. This is stem. So we're gonna actually cut the stem right at the base of the calyx. So that's all I have left. And then we're gonna take some wire. Does not need to be a huge chunk. And we're going to push it through the center of that calyx. Just like that. It's a pierce technique. All right. We're gonna pull it through. We're gonna try to center the wire. And then I'm gonna twist here at the base. And now I have replaced that unflexible stem with something that can bend and move all around, okay? So that's step 1, is to wire all of your blooms. The second step is with the tape. This, while its practicality is awesome, its looks are not. It looks very mechanical. You can see wire. Wire is unnatural. So we want to cover that up and help blend it to the rest when we start adding the greenery and the filler. So floral tape is our game changer. We're going to take the tape and we're going to start at the base, and we're going to cover all of this in rotation. Now, floral tape only sticks to itself. It feels sticky, and your hands can kind of get that gummy, waxy feel to it, but it doesn't stick to me, it doesn't stick to clothes. It will only stick to itself. That's just the way it's made. So with that, I have to stretch it, and it's gonna make that weird noise. That helps it get sticky, activated for itself. And then we're gonna start down here at the calyx. In order to start roaming around, I need to get it all the way attached to itself. It has to be on itself. And for good measure, I kind of squeeze it together and kind of bounce on it to really make sure that it's adhered. Once you've got that part done, you literally can hold this and spin it and just let it do its magic all the way up this wire. If it's slipping, if it's falling off, if it's not attaching well, you didn't do that base part really well. So sometimes you got to go around twice. Sometimes you got to hold pressure and really make sure that it's attaching. But once you get that, this part is super easy. You just literally sit here and twirl until you've covered up all that wire, and then just tear it. You don't need to use scissors. This stuff is really, you just tear it and it's fine and dandy. So cover up all that wire. All right, do that to all 4, and then we'll be back for step 2. Okay, I've already made mistake number 1. Step 1 is supposed to be making your bows, because now that I've done all that wiring and taping, my hand is sticky. And you want your bows done before you assemble, because once you start to assemble, you're holding it together in place. You're gonna need that bow before you actually tape it together. So backwards, rewind. Step 1 is actually to make your bows. So I do bows for both Corsage and Boutineeire. Boutineeire bows are kind of 50-50, depending on the person's personality, the current trend, their fashion, maybe even something to do with their culture. I think they look good. And if the customer doesn't want them, I would ask that. But let's say you're gifting it to somebody. If they don't really like it, a bow is way, way easy to just cut it out with a pair of scissors or even wire cutters. It's in the front of the arrangement. It's easily hideable if you needed to get rid of it. So I always make them to err on the side of caution rather than on regret. That being said, remember that the Boutineeire is only gonna have a single bloom versus the Corsage having 3, and it's a much smaller place than on the wrist. So the boutonniere bow is going to be slightly smaller with less mass, so less loops overall than you would be making the corsage. So I'm going to use chiffon ribbon today because it has a nice bounce to it. And my loop size is going to be pretty tiny because we are making a wearable, so we're talking like about that size. And I'm going to go ahead and make the boutonniere first and then the corsage. Okay, now back to our regular scheduled program. So we have bows and we have our main flower, our roses, wired and taped. And so now we're actually ready to start assembling and putting these guys together. So what I'd like to do first is show you the boutonniere, because if you can understand the boutonniere, basically the corsage is 3 boutonnieres then put together. Okay, so just bear with me for a second. So we need greenery and filler in order to make this whole thing come together. So today we're using a leatherleaf fern, and this is usually what a stem looks like. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna break off a couple of these bottom branches and use those. And then our filler today is a baby's breath. We do not need this much, especially for the boutonniere. We're going very, very light on the boutonniere, so I'm literally gonna take one little chunk. Okay. Now, we have to kind of remember where we're putting this thing. It's gonna be shoulder, so we don't need all of this. This is way too big, so we need to kind of bring it down. So I'm going to strip off a few of these, and we want to match. Okay. And that might even be too big. We're gonna kind of wait and see how this goes, okay? So if you've taken my class before, what we're trying to do is basically make a miniature bud vase arrangement. If we're pinning it on or we're putting it on the wrist, no matter what, it's a one-sided arrangement. I'm viewing it from one side, okay? So our greenery is our background. It's gonna build that wall. So it should be the tallest and the widest. We're then going to have our filler just kind of somewhere dumped down just a smidge from the top. And then our main flower just slightly under that. So it's kind of a cascade stepping down, yet it all still blends together. When it comes to the corsage, because we have more room to play with and it overall should be more showy because it's for the female, we might use more filler both in this position and also in the front of the flower to kind of fully secure it. But for the guy, we want to go more petite. So we kind of have background, pillow, and then the head. Okay? All right. So we're gonna get it how we like it. I think the greenery is just fine, but I am gonna pull it down a little bit so it doesn't show as much over the top. I like that position just slightly better. And then the bow, where's the bow gonna go? The bow's gonna go right here in the front at the base of the rose. So it's gonna go, it's hard to do backwards. It's gonna go right there. So we don't wanna hide the rose, we don't wanna put on it. And sometimes we like the bow to actually kick out to one side. And if you are gonna do that, you wanna know what side the person is gonna wear it. Normally, if they're in like a tuxedo or a full suit, it's got a pocket where the handkerchief goes, you would go opposite. So normally this is on the right. And we want, if you're gonna do the kick out, you want it to kick out to the outside of the body. You don't wanna kick into the torso. All right. So I like how it looks. These are a little long, we're gonna trim those last though. So this needs to be secured so it does not move. So we're gonna use floral tape again. Gotta stretch it out. Now this is the important part. So right now the only piece in here that is truly flexible is gonna be on the bow wire, because we didn't tape that, but then the taped rose. The 2 stems of the fern and the little stem of the baby's breath are just gonna snap once we start to put this on the body. So we are gonna have to modify that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start to tape this guy together, just like what we did with the rose. We're gonna get it around on itself. We're gonna squish it to secure it. We're gonna go around one more time just for good measure to make sure I really have this, because I don't want any of this to move around, right? Like once it's on, it's on. Okay, then this is the key part that a lot of people struggle with or they forget. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pause. We're not gonna do anything, but we are gonna take the 2 stems of the fern that are just kind of, we know are gonna snap. We're actually, and there's a little bit of that baby's breath right there. We're gonna cut out all the natural stems right there. so the natural stems are in this taped part, this very top part, so they're secure, they're held in, but now the rest of it is just gonna be wire, so it's truly flexible. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna continue taping. So I did not cut the tape, I did not tear the tape, I just stopped, cut the natural stems, and now I'm gonna continue to tape, and I'm gonna tape this whole thing all the way down, all together. Super important because this is gonna show, this is our last and final step before we get it ready for the body. So you don't wanna get any skips. Not only because of looks, but also for like safety. We don't want to poke anybody with this wire. So we're gonna go all the way to the end. Perfect. Okay, so now the finalize, the two final steps, what we're gonna do, two things. We're gonna trim the tails of the bow to be proportionate to the rest, and we're gonna curl up this tail. Nobody sees a boutonniere pinned onto the body like that. They all have this cute little like pigtail, like a curly Q. So I'm gonna show you that. So first off, I'm gonna trim with scissors the tails just a little bit shorter. So look a little bit more proportionate, there we go. Now for the curly Q, you need your pencil. You're gonna start at the base, you're gonna curl up and out, the kick out that we talked about, out to the right. You're gonna curl all the way up as high as you can go. And then if you curled tightly, so let's say these are all together, you're gonna naturally pull those out. We just wanna see a little bit of that curl. And now it'd be ready to pin on the body. Pinning is a totally different story. A lot of you get scared about pinning on the body. So here's my tip. All you're doing is weaving this pin needle through the fabric, through the flower, through the fabric, okay? So you're gonna, very, very technical. So you're gonna pull the garment, probably the dress shirt or the tuxedo coat, away from the body of the person wearing it. You're gonna put the pin into that fabric. You're gonna come out the fabric, but then you're gonna go into all the main taped part of the flower. You're gonna go all the way through that. And then you're gonna go back into fabric of the garment and back out. And there you go. Obviously doing it to myself and upside down is a little hard, but it should be upright and pointed out to the outside of the body. Now I'm ready. It's not going anywhere. If I did multiple blooms, if I did a heavier bloom, you may need to do 2 pins just to secure it, and at that point you want to crisscross them. All right, let's do corsage. Welcome to my life. They've been quiet all day. Now they want to chat. Or not, I guess. Maybe they got the picture. Okay, so for corsage, now that you've seen this, corsage should come easy for the first like half, and then the bracelet is really the only thing new because we're not putting it on the body. We actually have to adhere it to something else that's stationary. So our first step for the corsage, once we have our blooms wired and taped and we've made our bow, we're literally gonna create 3 of these without the bow. The bow's gonna come on last when we do the bracelet. So what I'm meaning is we're gonna take fern and a hunk of baby's breath and the flower. We're gonna position this how we want, and we're gonna tape them together. We're gonna do that for 3 times. Then we will assemble it onto the bracelet, okay? So here we go, I'm gonna time lapse this for you. 3 of these, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so now we have our bow and we have our 3 mini boutonniere, mini bud vases, and we're ready to assemble. So your wristlet, bracelet, you can find these also at craft stores. Most of them, the basic level looks like this. They make a whole bunch of upgraded, fancier ones with pearls and whatnot, but most of them have a metal bar, and this kind of works like a paper clip. You can bend these. And so first off, I want you to notice the shape. If I were to be wearing this right now on my hand, to me, this looks like a capital I. And so I'm gonna refer to the top bar and the bottom bar of the eye as far as placement goes, and then what you're going to be doing to this. You're only going to be bending one, so that way you've got some security, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 3 pieces that we've created, our 3 bud vases, and I want you to look at them and find the biggest bloomed one. To me, it's this guy. And we're gonna put that in the center, and we're gonna try to do a triangular arrangement, paying a close attention to the roses. So a triangular arrangement like so, okay? At this point, what I would do, just to double check, is I'd hold it up kind of how you'd place it on the wrist. If you are going to be wearing it, if you know the friend that you're making it for, if this is too big or too small, now is your chance to make adjustments. So if it's too big, you could always, instead of doing triangular, you could just do 2 and do a staircased, a step down version, hold them diagonal to each other. If this is not enough, I wouldn't recommend adding a 4th bloom, because we do still have a bow to go, but you could add extra pieces of greenery to the back and tape them in. You could add more filler. You could even do a secondary filler, sometimes for texture and for fun. You could do a different filler like wax flower, status, limonium. You could even play with fake elements, like I've seen feathers put in, beading put in, just whatever goes with whatever the person's gonna be wearing and what they like. Once you're happy with the look though, we are gonna tape this together after we've added the bow, and then we will be putting it on the bracelet, okay? Our bow today, just like the boutonniere, this is really hard to do backwards, hold on. Okay, our bow, just like the boutonniere, is gonna go here at the base, and the whole point is to cover up this empty juncture of where all those guys are at. That's where I want my bow to be. And then I want the tails hanging down, just like that. All right, we're gonna tape this together.
There are no natural stems anymore, so you're gonna be taping the whole thing together in one shot, no need to trim anything. The hardest part is gonna be hiding the bow while you're taping this, because the tails are hanging in your way, but you just gotta work around them.
I only have a couple more steps. I need to actually attach this to the bracelet, and then once it's attached, I will be taping it on to secure it. That will be my final tape job, and then I just need to curl cue the tail and trim these guys. So before that I do that, I noticed that not all my wires were cut evenly. Obviously I'm eyeballing it, I'm not measuring it. So before I have my final tape job, now is when I want to trim it with wire cutters, because you will see in a moment that as you cut it, you do have an exposed edge, and that could wear and become pokey. So you want to do this while you still have one more tape job to go, so that way it covers it up and seals it at the very end. Okay, so now all my things are at an even length for my covering. Okay, the capital I mentioned, we're going to put the flowers onto that. I'm not worried about this. We're going to curl that up at the end. What I'm looking for, I'll show you guys on the back, is I want the bottom bar of the eye is the one that I'm going to bend around the base of the flowers. This top bar is going to stay flat and open, nice and wide. It's hidden back there. There's enough plant material, but we're going to leave that there because all of these roses have weight to them, and we want to support that. If we put this all the way like this and these have nothing and it's on my wrist and I'm bouncing around, it's very easy for this to whoosh and snap. I've seen it before. So we want to give those flowers some support. So to get this in their correct position, we want to push this eye as high up as we can, because we want to give it the most protection as possible, but being able to bend this around the tubular, the stem-like structure. We don't want to catch any of the leaves of the fern in there. So as high up as you can go so that the bottom bar can be bent around. And then literally you're just going to bend the bars of the eye without getting it caught in the ribbon. And then I'm going to tape over that metal that I've bent all the way down one final time. I'm not taping up here, I'm just taping this bent part. I'm doing that for 2 reasons. It's gonna help really solidify that connection on the bracelet, and 2, the metal is bright, and in pictures for like flash photography, it will flash and look really funky. So get it really, really bent on there, tight on there. I try to push on it, and then you're gonna take your tape and cover it up. We are officially on the bracelet and we are taped. We've covered up that part of the metal. All right, same thing as with the boutonniere. I'm gonna take my pencil down at the base. I'm gonna curly cue it up and out to the right, as high up as I can go. And then I'm gonna fluff my bow the way position I want it, and I'm gonna trim these tails because they are definitely too long. And we have our corsage. It's secure, it's not going anywhere. It's in that triangular formation with the bow hanging down. And because of the curly cue, this is not uncomfortable and poking at me. I really have nothing touching me on the skin except for that base of the eye bar. All right, well, there you have it. Boutonniere and wristlet corsage done in a basic style. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Some final notes about care. If you want this guy to look as good as it does now, a few hours and days from now, you cannot simply just take this and leave it on the counter. It has no water source for the stem, so keeping it in cooler temperatures and adding moisture is key to making this look awesome. Because I use chiffon ribbon instead of a pure satin, this does not have like water markings. So if this gets wet, it's not a big deal. It's not gonna stain it. It's not gonna leave blotches. So that's a good choice. But to hydrate, you just need like a water bottle, a mister, and you're gonna mist everything around here. The most important thing to focus misting on is the actual blooms. Greenery and baby's breath, while it needs water to survive, it can last a lot longer and not show damage as quickly as a bloom can. So roses are pretty finicky. The petals will start to wilt out. You'll start to see them just look limp and yucky. So a spray bottle of water would be awesome. Secondly, just storing them in a cool place. So most people want to go to the fridge. Fridges are awesome. We use floral coolers at school and in the floral industry. So cold is awesome. However, if your fridge has fruit in it, especially apples, and we're talking raw, like produce fruit, not like a jar of applesauce, don't put it in there. Fruit gives off a gas called ethylene as part of its natural respiration process, and ethylene is poisonous, toxic to flowers. It's in the air, you can't get rid of it. These guys will turn brown, just like when you cut an apple, it turns brown. Totally different process, but it'll get that yucky brown, yellowy color very quickly, and once it has it, you can't get rid of it. It's just gonna start to wilt. So if your fridge has the fruit in it, don't bother. Somewhere like a dark room, a closet, the garage. If it's not gonna rain, putting it outside, or if it's not like too cold of temperatures, putting it outside in a container would be perfectly fine. But obviously the sooner you use these, the better. So if you can wait till the day of the special event to make these, awesome. Definitely don't put it in the freezer. The freezer is worse than the fruit fridge. You freeze these, you break some of the structures inside. When they start to thaw out, they burst instead of thawing nicely, and it's not good. Don't even try putting this in the freezer, please. And then when you're done, these are already ready to dry and become a keepsake if you wanted to. Or you could take them apart and press them. You could harvest the petals and use them in something else. It's just a really cool activity. All right, happy corsage and boutonniere making.